Let's see if I can read this. Danger. Burns can be fatal and high exposure to hydrogen sulfide, geothermal gas can cause fatigue, dizziness, delirium, nausea, loss of consciousness, and death. I wonder what we sacrifice for the ability to be able to read. We're told as teachers that reading isn't a normal process, and that to read we need to use parts of our brain that previously weren't used for reading. In life, things are usually an opportunity cost sort of situation. So what is it that we are losing? What is it that is costing us for the ability to read that this geothermal area is dangerous to me, and if I walk out that way, I might die? I'm going to do up a research brief about that. I'm going to plug it into AI, produce a video, and it's going to come out of one of these volcanic vents just here now.
You know, you're doing something right this very second that feels so incredibly natural, you're doing it without even a second thought. But in this explainer, we're diving into the hidden and honestly mind-blowing neurological costs of modern literacy on our ancient brains. Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, the simple act of reading actually comes with a biological price tag. And understanding it, well, it might just completely change how you look at the world around you. So we all kind of assume literacy is just a natural human baseline, right? You learn to walk, you learn to talk, and boom, naturally you learn to read. But what if reading is actually an artificial software patch that we've forced onto our evolutionary hardware? Just think about it for a second. We've been talking for hundreds of thousands of years. Babies pick up spoken language literally just by listening. But reading? We invented that super recently in our evolutionary timeline, and it takes years of intense schooling to actually master.
This whole situation creates what scientists call an evolutionary mismatch. Basically, it's this biological tension of using our ancient survival-wired brains to navigate a modern world that is just totally saturated with text. Our visual systems were meticulously wired over millennia to do things like track sudden movements, spot hidden predators, and read really subtle changes in the wild. I mean, our ancestors were using this exact same hardware to hunt wolves, while we mostly use it today to, hunt for our misplaced phones. Now we use those exact systems to stare at tiny, static, abstract squiggles on flat glowing screens. And this mismatch? It totally sets the stage for a modern cognitive crisis that we are really only just beginning to wrap our heads around.
Part 1. The cost of literacy, the silent cognitive crisis.
So, our daily reality is pushing our brains to the absolute limit. From childhood, our educational systems are pushing for early, super intensive reading. Then we grow up, right? And our digital work basically demands that we stare at symbolic text for hours on end. And here's the kicker. Because we spend so much time interpreting abstract symbols on flat screens, we are structurally losing our ancient capacity to read subtle, physical landscapes. We're actually losing the ability to intuitively read body language, facial expressions, and environmental cues. When your eyes are locked on a screen, your brain's ancient radar system is essentially powered down.
Part 2. Repurposing the visual brain. The science of literacy.
Okay, so we aren't just talking about a behavioral shift here. We are talking about actual, physical, structural changes inside your brain. The biological cost of reading is best explained by a fascinating concept called the neuronal recycling hypothesis. This framework shows how cultural inventions, like reading and writing, actually invade and repurpose evolutionary brain networks that were originally evolved for completely different survival functions. You don't just have a built-in reading center in your brain when you're born. Actually, scratch that. It's more like the cultural invention of text has to literally overwrite and recycle circuits meant for natural survival just so it can function at all.
And this biological overwriting happens in a very specific piece of neural architecture known as the visual word form area, or the VWFA for short. This little region in your visual cortex is completely hijacked from its original ancient job of recognizing objects and navigating landscapes, literally just so you can decode characters and words. Your brain actually had to give up a piece of its wilderness tracking hardware just so you could read a modern email. How wild is that?
Part 3. The visual overwrite metaphor, the monolith and the hard drive.
Let's think of the brain like a hard drive with limited storage space. Human evolution preloaded this drive with essential software for tracking movement, reading predators, and recognizing slight biological patterns out in nature. But then, along comes literacy. The cultural invention of text acts as this massive linguistic software patch that overwrites that ancient navigation software.
It's forced right onto the visual cortex to accommodate language scripts. Remember, you don't magically grow new brain space to read. You have to overwrite the old survival space. Or try looking at it this way. Imagine a beautiful, ancient stone monolith. Originally, it was carved with these intricate, delicate, natural textures to help ancient hunters read the wind or track passing wildlife. But then, a modern culture comes along and deeply chisels a heavy, bold text warning directly over those delicate lines. The original subtle patterns of the monolith aren't entirely gone, but they are permanently obscured and disrupted by the heavy text written right on top of them. That monolith? Yeah, that's your visual cortex.
Part 4. The zero-sum illusion. The debate and the danger.
Now, this brings us to a major scientific debate. Is the neural real estate that we traded for literacy a strict zero-sum loss of our ancient sensory sharpness? Scientists are heavily debating whether this overwrite is just a zero-sum illusion, meaning did we just lose our survival skills outright? Or if the incredible abstract problem-solving and knowledge-sharing we gain from reading actually compensates for our physical sensory loss. The jury is absolutely still out on this one, but the risk of that trade-off is very, very real. Because the profound danger here is something called experiential blindness. It's when you become highly capable of reading a warning sign, but structurally incapable of intuitively sensing the surrounding physical environment. Imagine perfectly reading a printed sign that says dangerous cliff ahead, but completely losing the physical instinct to sense the ground dropping away beneath your feet before you ever even spot the label. It's the ultimate irony of a society that values the abstract symbol way more than the direct physical experience.
Part 5. Restoring your sensory brain. Practical wellness applications.
So, knowing that reading is a hard-won, physically demanding neurological redirection, how on earth do we build actionable steps into our daily routines to protect our mental balance? Well, first, we have to balance heavy screen consumption with deliberate, unmediated environmental interaction. Second, we have to actively force our visual brain to step away from symbol decoding so it can return to its low-arousal evolutionary role. Put simply, you just need to intentionally engage your eyes in dynamic physical spaces. You've got to give your brain structured sensory off-ramps to keep those primary evolutionary circuits healthy and well-rested.
Taking an intentional sensory off-ramp really just means practicing active, real-world movement, navigating natural trails, scanning the track while you jog, or honestly even just collecting litter in outdoor environments. Why does this work? Well, scanning a chaotic forest floor for a piece of litter engages those ancient visual circuits perfectly. It forces your eyes away from flat, abstract symbols and drops them right back into the dynamic, 3D physical world that they evolved to understand.
Which brings us to a big question that I want to leave echoing in your mind. If we rely absolutely only on text to understand our reality, will we read the word danger perfectly, but entirely lose the instinct to sense it? It's definitely something to ponder the next time you finally look away from your screen, stretch your eyes, and step back out into the real world.
What that research showed really resonated with me because growing up as a child, neither home nor school was a safe place for me. So I would go out into places like this rather than be sitting at home reading, watching television, or spending time at school. So my visual areas of my brain developed to read this country, to read the ground, to read the behaviors of animals, rather than to be able to read letters and text out of books. So that explains a real lot to me. Questions like this come to me when I'm out filming in places like this. If you want to see another one, there should be another one floating around here, I don't know, there?